Have you ever wondered why some people seem to rise while others stay stuck in the same place year after year? Why do some people seem to attract success effortlessly while others work tirelessly and still struggle to survive? You might think it's luck, or background, or opportunity. But what if the difference lies in something you can control, your mindset? Today, you'll hear a story that begins in a dusty railway station with a man who had nothing, not even hope, and ends with a revelation so powerful it could change the way you see yourself and your life forever. Stay until the end, because what happens in the last few minutes might completely shift your perspective on success, giving, and what it truly means to live a meaningful life. Once upon a time, in a busy railway station somewhere in a small city, there lived a man named John. John was in his mid-40s. His clothes were torn, his beard unshaven, and his eyes reflected years of quiet despair. Every morning before the sun rose, he took his usual place beside the ticket counter, sitting cross-legged with a rusty tin can. Every day, thousands of people passed by. Some gave him coins. Most ignored him. He never blamed them. In his heart, he believed that's just how life was meant to be. He told himself, "I'm a beggar. This is who I am." But deep inside, there was a quiet ache, the longing for something more. One afternoon, as the trains came and went, John noticed a man stepping onto the platform. The man was dressed in an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase. His shoes shone in the sunlight, and his steps carried confidence, the kind John had never felt. Ah, John thought, that man must be rich. If I ask him, surely he'll give me a good amount. With renewed hope, he stood up, stretched out his hand, and said softly, "Sir, could you spare some change?" The businessman, his name was Michael, stopped and looked at John. But instead of reaching for his wallet, he asked something unexpected. "Tell me, do you always just take from others? Have you ever given anything to anyone?" John blinked, confused. I'm a beggar, sir," he stammered. "I survive by asking for money. I have nothing to give." Michael smiled slightly, but his eyes were sharp. "If you believe you have nothing to give," he said, "then you have no right to ask for anything. I'm a businessman. I believe in exchange. If you can offer me something, I can give you something in return. But if you can't give, I can't give either." Then, without another word, Michael stepped onto his train and disappeared among the crowd. John stood frozen. His heart pounded. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Not with cruelty, but with truth. He sat down again, the businessman's words echoing in his head. If you believe you have nothing to give, then you have no right to ask for anything." For the first time in years, John didn't beg for the rest of the day. He just sat there, thinking. That night, John lay awake on the cold concrete floor behind the station. The words kept replaying, "If you want to receive, you must first give. What can I possibly give?" he thought bitterly. "I have nothing, no home, no skills, no money." But even as he tried to dismiss the thought, something stirred in him, a small spark of curiosity. What if I did have something to give? Something small? For 2 days, he didn't beg. He simply watched, observed people's faces. The way they smiled when someone greeted them, the way a little girl laughed when a balloon seller gave her an extra balloon for free. He realized something. People like to receive, even if it was something small. On the third day, John was sitting by the station, lost in thought, when something caught his eye. Near the railway tracks, a patch of wildflowers was blooming. Tiny, bright, and beautiful, standing tall despite the dust and noise around them. He stared at them for a long time. Then an idea came, quiet at first, then loud enough to make his heart beat faster. What if, he thought, instead of just asking, I offer something in return? He hesitated. It sounded foolish. Who would want a wildflower from a beggar? But the idea refused to leave his mind. So with trembling hands, John plucked a few flowers, arranged them carefully, and returned to his spot. That day, when a passenger dropped a coin into his tin, John smiled, handed the person a flower, and said, "Thank you, sir. This is for you." The man looked surprised, then smiled. "For me?" "Yes, sir," John said, "to wish you a beautiful day." The man's eyes softened. He took the flower and walked away smiling. For the first time in years, John felt something new. Dignity. The next day, John continued his new method. Each time someone gave him money, he offered a flower in return. Something strange began to happen. People started noticing him. Some stopped just to see the beggar with flowers. A few even took selfies with him. Others gave him more money than before, and John noticed a pattern. When he had flowers, people gave generously. But when he ran out of flowers, the coins stopped coming. "It's true," he whispered to himself. People love to receive something in return. Slowly, John's earnings increased. He began saving a little each day, buying small bundles of flowers from a nearby vendor instead of picking wild ones. Before long, he wasn't just surviving, he was selling. He no longer saw himself as a beggar. He was offering beauty in exchange for kindness. One afternoon, John saw a familiar figure step onto the platform. The same man, Michael, dressed in the same crisp suit. Excited, John rushed over with a bright smile and said, "Sir, today I have something to give you. If you give me money, I'll give you flowers in return." Michael paused, then smiled widely. He handed John some cash and took a few flowers. "You've truly understood the value of exchange," he said. "Today, you're no longer a beggar. You've become a businessman." John stood there, speechless. The train whistled. Michael stepped on board and disappeared once again. But this time, John didn't feel small. He stood tall, holding his flowers like trophies. "Maybe I really am a businessman," he thought. "Maybe I always was." That night, he made a decision, one that would change his life forever. John left the railway station. Using his savings, he bought more flowers and began selling them at a nearby park. At first, people avoided him, still seeing him as the beggar with flowers. But John didn't give up. He smiled at every customer, greeted every child, thanked every person, even if they didn't buy. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, people began to recognize him. The Flower Man. He started wrapping flowers in paper, adding small notes like, "Have a wonderful day," or "You are loved." Business grew. 6 months later, John returned to the railway station, not to beg, but to travel. He wore a clean shirt, polished shoes, and carried a briefcase. As he waited for his train, he saw a familiar face. Michael was there again. When he noticed John, his eyes widened. "Do I know you?" he asked. John smiled. "Yes, sir. We met twice before, right here. The first time you refused to give me money. The second time you bought flowers from me." Michael's face lit up with recognition. "Wait, you're that beggar?" John laughed. "Yes, I was, but not anymore. Now I run a small flower business and I'm traveling to expand it." Michael was speechless for a moment. Then he smiled proudly. "That's incredible. What changed you?" John replied softly. "You did. That day, you taught me one of life's greatest truths, that we only receive when we give. I realized I was never really a beggar. I was a businessman all along. I just had to see myself that way." The two men shook hands, no longer as a beggar and a businessman, but as equals. Then, as the train arrived, they both stepped aboard, each heading toward a new future. John's story teaches a timeless truth. Life is shaped not by what we have, but by how we see ourselves. If you believe you are small, you will remain small. If you believe you are powerless, you will live like a victim. But if you start to see yourself as capable, strong, and worthy, the world begins to reflect that back to you. It's not about money or status. It's about mindset. The moment you stop seeing yourself as helpless and start believing that you have something to give, even if it's just a smile, a kind word, a helping hand, everything begins to shift. John didn't wait for the world to change. He changed himself first, and that made all the difference. So, let me ask you, what's your railway station? Where in your life have you been waiting, asking, hoping, wishing, without realizing that you already have something to give? Maybe it's your creativity, maybe it's your kindness, maybe it's just your time and attention. Whatever it is, start giving it. Because the moment you start giving, life starts giving back. Your mindset creates your reality. As Napoleon Hill once said in Think and Grow Rich, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So don't limit yourself. Don't see yourself as small. See yourself as strong, capable, and valuable, because you are. When your thoughts change, your life changes too. If this story inspired you, hit the like button, drop a comment below, and share what you learned. And don't forget to share this story to inspire someone else who might need it today. And remember, you were never just anyone. You are a creator. You are capable of change. You just have to believe it first. See you in the next story.